Thank you very much for those insights. And to you, Brother Solomon,
Yes.
just to continue on his point of the injustice that has crept into the churches now. In our first episode, you actually spoke about such injustices, and from what I recall, you called the group of false pastors the mafia group, was it? And recently you were also on BBC News Africa, where you spoke about the false prophets and the false pastors that are creeping into the church. Can you just briefly explain to us what has your experience been with interacting with these people that have been captured by such deceptions within the church?
Yeah, I'm actually very glad, he's confident that the church in itself, in totality, has not been captured. But there are certain people that have been captured. There are certain individuals that have been captured. And once you are captured, the end product is you become a victim because you get abused. Now, my experience is in listening to some of the victims, those who have been abused either financially, spiritually, or sexually. There's quite a lot of it. I have a huge database of these people. It's almost the same story over and over. So now the abuser, the mafia type pastor, prophet, look at a place and say, how do I capture these people? How do I capture their minds? Because first you have to capture their minds. But that's not, your intention is not just to capture their minds. You want to capture their pocket. You want to capture their money. You want to capture their dignity. You want them to worship you. You want them to be able to be devoted to you. So you look at all these areas and you say, okay, if I want to capture their minds, then I have to look at some of the issues that they have. And people are going through a lot. People are hopeless. They're going through a lot of situations where, you have health problems, you have some generational problems in your family, you have success, a lot of it is about success. Also, you want to progress, you want to get better, you want your business to do better. So now this guy came with, dangling a whole lot of promises in the name of prophecies. So people have moved to a place of trying to have an intimate relationship with God to just looking at the supernatural. Now, you cannot experience the supernatural if you don't have intimacy with God. So I see a trend, amongst quite a lot of them. And this guy's basically, to capture you is to be able to abuse you financially, and they've been abused financially, to be able to exercise some sort of injustice over you without really tolerating how you're going to end. So they do that quite a lot, and I've worked with a lot of, 14-year-olds who were abused by a prophet, sexually abused and raped. I've worked with boys who were abused by their pastor, grooming them and actually telling them that he's raising them to be young pastors. So he puts them in the church, they sleep in the church, their parents are aware of it, their parents trust the pastor, but he gives them a ring. I actually have one of the rings in the car. He gives them a ring saying, you are committed to me. So first, for some of them, they are captured spiritually also. Before they even capture your money, they capture you spiritually, because I see that a lot of the mafia type pastors and prophets, some of them do go to witch doctors and they got into a covenant. So they have some sort of a power. They can hypnotize you, they can brainwash you, and a lot of them fall victim. So I think those are some of the trends that I've seen, and the different ways that people are being captured. And when you meet them, they're so broken that you actually, people blame them. Why did you go there? Were you not aware? But I don't want to think that way. I just want to have compassion for them. I want to see them as people who were naive and ignorant. A lot of them are actually naive and ignorant. Only a few of them go there based on their greed, because you want to get a prophecy to make more money. You want to get a prophecy so your business is going to be more successful. But majority of them are actually really seeking for the one true God that we worship. Unfortunately, they went into the hands of a prophet or a pastor who was just ready to capture their minds and capture their pockets.
You've actually touched on the second point that I actually wanted to talk to in terms of the impact of these bogus acts. How has that actually affected, individual relationships and these individuals' relationship with God? Have you seen any other trend further to
Yeah,
that?
quite a lot, sadly. Because it affects you not just physically, it affects you spiritually. So it sets you back. Like when you see one of these fake pastors or prophets having a sexual relationship with women, because a lot of them are very promiscuous, or adulterous anyway, let me put it that way. And they're not just doing it for fun. They're doing it because they have a covenant with Lucifer for them to keep doing it so they can have some sort of power. Obviously, Lucifer has his own influence. So now you as a young girl, you're a slave queen, you get into this, or you're in church, he's a pastor, you respect him, and you don't say anything about it, you just want to do it, and you keep sleeping with him. Anytime you have sexual intercourse with him, there's a transfer of spirits, and he takes from you. Sex is a covenant. It's not just some pleasure that you just get involved in. It's not just for making babies. It's not, it's far more than that. So you are now left with so much mess and toxicity inside of you that it will take you years to be delivered from it. So you see a lot of that. I've worked with people who live in a garage now because they invested in a business that their prophet told them to invest. Some of them quit their job, put in money in their business. They took all their money and put it in there. So, but the most important thing is it affects their view of God. We all have a view of God, and when something like that happens to you, you now totally have a distorted view of who God is. But God didn't do that to you. God didn't take your money. God didn't abuse you. It was a man who claims to be a man of God that did that. So, but because we have been so focused, again, worship. Lucifer wants us to worship. And most of these pastors and prophets, they want you to focus on them and worship them, because that way you're going to be totally devoted to them. Because you trusted them so much and you feel they actually took the place of God. Once they disappoint you, you feel your relationship with God has been distorted, unfortunately. So now you have to go and rebuild the whole thing. It takes a lot to build a relationship with God. I think for me, that's one of the things that's keeping me away from sin. Because I don't want to, go back 10 years later and start dealing with issues that I've dealt with like long time ago. So we need the fear of God. But because there's no fear of God in some of these mafia pastors and prophets, we see that, unfortunately, the captured, the victims, now go through all this, and they're left with so much that some of them just run away from church. I know some of them run away. I don't want to go to God. I don't want to go to church. Or I'm a Christian, but I don't want to go to church. But you can't be a Christian and you don't want to go to a fellowship. It's about fellowship. It's actually not about church. It's about being with each other and encouraging each other and really sharing about what we're going through and praying with each other. When 2 or 3 are together and agree on a thing, there's power in that. So those are some of my experiences and the impact, sadly, that has really impacted some of these victims that have been captured.